is the dumb best reason someone got mad at you?
Story 1. XGF and I were both sick. I was napping while she was studying. This was back in college. I wake up and she's giving me the silent treatment, her method of being upset with me. Apparently I somehow offended her while I was asleep. Ridiculous. I later found out that she had came over to me while I slept and blew her nose or coughed, and I did not wake up or show concern. Seriously. Story 2. Teacher threw me out of class in high school when I answered a question correctly after she thought I was sleeping in class. Still bothers me to this day. You, Mrs. Forrester. A woman screamed at me because I wouldn't return a heavily used toaster she purchased 5 years ago at a store that doesn't even exist in Canada. I do not work at a place that sells toasters. Story 3. This total stranger at the bus stop. He sneezed and I said bless you. He replied angrily that wasn't a sneeze, it was a cough. I said sorry, I thought it was a sneeze, and he yelled well it wasn't. He was angry out of all proportion. Story 4. I got death threats at work when I wouldn't accept a box of reptiles as payment for an electric guitar. The guy was later banned from the mall after trying to steal shoes from a mannequin. Story 5. A girl that I'm friends with on Facebook always posts romantic, cheesy memes, and her husband always replies with like, oh baby, I love you more than words can say, etc. One day she posted some cheesy pic of a couple hugging with the words a real man knows there is no wrong time to squeeze his girl, so I commented unless she has broken ribs, that'd be the wrong time. They both legitimately got so mad at me and tried to insult me by saying well you obviously aren't very romantic. Story 6. My husband and I went on a 5th-year anniversary trip. 2 people were mad at us for not inviting them. His brother was one of them. Those same 2 people were mad because we went on our honeymoon and didn't invite them. Story 7. Coworker was angry with me because I called in sick from work. She wouldn't talk to me for 2 days, so I finally asked what her problem was. She said well I was feeling really sick and was going to call off too but didn't, and I never take a day off sick, so it's kind of unfair that you did. What? Story 8. Driving around with my BFF and I realize she is fuming. I have no idea why she is pissed at me. I get pissed at her for being pissed. We get to her house and we are slamming doors and sighing exaggeratedly. Finally she yells, why are you pissed at me? Because you're pissed at me. Yeah, we both thought the other person was mad for no reason when really, we both were. Story 9. Years ago I was standing in line with a friend, getting some awful fast food. For context, I am Caucasian, my friend is of Chinese descent. We live in Canada. End of context. So we were waiting in line when a very animated lady of some kind of Asian descent starts talking to my friend in whatever language she spoke from her country or origin. While my friend understands the Chinese dialect that her family speaks, she doesn't understand. This woman tells her so. You would have thought that we had just stabbed her. The lady starts screaming in English that my friend was a disgrace to her people, that I was the devil girl influencing her away from her people. It was bad enough that the manager asked her to leave. I have never understood that one. She was in a burger joint in Canada, but expected that anyone who maybe looked like her a tiny bit to converse with her in her native language. Story 10. I work at one of the world's busiest theme parks, and today a guest screamed at me because I wouldn't let their toddler on a roller coaster that they would literally fall out of. Then she continued to tug on my shirt and asked what I would give her for compensation. When I tried to give her a pass to enter another ride, she got even angrier and demanded I give her one to a brand new ride that just opened and had a 7-hour queue, after I explained I couldn't, because those tickets don't even exist. She got in my face, screamed again, and demanded I give her tickets to our competitor's park. After explaining I couldn't, because our company doesn't own that park, she asked me what time I was finished work and told me she'd find me in the parking lot. All this because I wouldn't let her toddler go on a ride they would have slipped out of. Story 11. One of my coworkers got pissed off at me for wearing skinny jeans to a company picnic. He had married a woman half his age and had her convinced that his beer gut was a natural response to aging and slowing metabolism. Well, I'm even older than him, so the wife saw through the lie, put him on a diet, and now I get the blame. Story 12. A woman I had never met or seen in my life at a public event asked me where her kids were. I was confused and said I'm sorry, I don't know, and she yelled and asked where they put them. She stormed off angry at me. I never had a clue why she asked me. Story 13. Nothing is coming to mind right now, but I once witnessed my mother instruct my dad to broil the out of her hamburger, got angry when it was too rare, it was a gray, leathery mess, and told him to cook it longer. He took it out a little while later and it was black. She just stared at this inedible hockey puck on her plate for a few long seconds, seething with rage, picked it up, winged it at his head and screamed, you burned it. You burned it and you did it on purpose. Yeah lady, no he did it on purpose, he did as he was told. Edit. To everyone commenting whoa abusive, don't worry. I'm well aware that my mom and dad have a bizarre, unhealthy relationship and that she's prone to abuse. I've explained their situation pretty thoroughly in replies to a bunch of people if anybody's curious. I had plans one particular night and my 2 closest friends asked if I was busy. I told them I had plans that night but could do something the next day. They proceeded to throw a fit because I refused to cancel my plans. I was already on the way there, and our argument resulted in us not talking for a weekend. This situation was recurring, but I usually gave in. I realized how much better off I was without the burden of people who got jealous, offended, wait for they were easily, and have talked to them sparingly since. Story 14. That kid stole my phone. Met him once, at my house at a party I threw. He loses his phone. In his eyes, that meant I stole his phone. Except when he told his friend that I stole his phone, he did it by texting him using the phone he claimed I stole. Holy, that took me for a ride when it first happened. Story 15. In the early 80s my parents bought a home stereo. The face of it had a gaudy fluorescent orange paper sticker around the remote sensor that said, "Remote control ready." Its sole purpose was as a shelf talker for the store demo models and was meant to be removed by the end user. The thing was a few years old and the cheap uncoated paper had become soiled. So one day while I was listening to music I peeled it off. My mom got super pissed off about this for some reason. Story 16. My sister got mad at me for helping my niece or daughter and my niece's infant son move out of the house she was giving up to the bank. My sister wanted them to move into a trailer parked at her house, but my niece found a really good house sharing situation. My sister hasn't spoken to me since and told mutual relations friends that if they talked to me she would not speak to them either. She's a control freak. Story 17. I folded the towels wrong. My mom has a very specific way she likes the towels folded, and when I was a kid teen if all the towels in the closet weren't properly folded she'd pull them all out and I had to fold every single one correctly. I could probably write a book just listing the dumb things she used to get mad about, but this is the one I always mention to people because it is just such a ridiculous thing. Story 18. I was walking in a completely empty area in school, except for one other person. She was walking right toward me not looking where she was going. I tried to move out of the way, but she still ended up bumping me with the hand she was carrying her water bottle in. It fell on the floor and then she glared at me for what was clearly her fault. Story 19. My ex got mad at me that I didn't get her a birthday card while we were in the car on the way to Nashville for the weekend for her birthday. Needless to say that relationship didn't last much longer. Story 20. Because I didn't come during. Still baffles me how he managed to turn that around into a huge argument which ended in silent treatment for the night. Story 21. Watching Final Destination 3 with my ex, me hugging her, her head on my chest, and the scene with the girls dying in the tanning beds comes on, they are naked, and my ex lifted her head up, and punched me, and then moved away from me. I asked what was that for, and apparently my heart had sped up at the naked girls on screen. I didn't have the heart to apologize for my autonomic functions. Story 22. I found out he had a crush on some girl that I never even heard of. Just suddenly, he wouldn't speak to me at all. I try to ask what was wrong. He'd just pretend I wasn't there. I asked his best friend if he had any clue what was going on. He had no idea either. About a month later, we ended up having to partner up in a game and he finally told me. I was like, "That's it, you won't speak to me because I know you have a crush on someone." I apologized because I wasn't sure what else to say. After that we were friends again. Third grade was tough. Story 23. A teacher sent me out of class for arguing with her when she said Frank survived the Holocaust. Her reasoning was, how could we have her diary if she died? Story 24. I was on my class's camping trip in college, and the last day we drove through town and the driver decided to treat us and buy us cupcakes. I decided to pick the chocolate coffee cupcake. Some random girl I met on the trip decides to berate me on my life choices and how caffeine is against the school and the church rules religious college and threatens to report me to the school to have me expelled unless I picked a different flavor. It was the best tasting chocolate coffee cupcake I ever had. Story 25. My mom randomly texted me at work and asked if I had Amazon Prime. I said yeah. She asked for my username and password. I said no, I don't give anybody any of my credentials as a matter of personal security, but I'll be happy to order whatever for you. She got really mad and said that I was being disrespectful and couldn't believe that I didn't trust her, wouldn't talk to me or even look at me for a few days. She got over it. She's otherwise totally normal. Story 26. I had an ex-girlfriend get mad at me for paying for the bill once at a restaurant. She said she can pay for her own stuff. She was about $3,000 in credit card debt, had recently received a speeding ticket, and had just received a cut in pay. In my mind I thought I was taking care of her. I didn't know I was rubbing her the wrong way for some reason. She yelled at me in public, threw her keys at me and told me to drive myself home. Except we came in her car so I drove her to her house then walked home. Then she got mad that I walked home. Needless to say I dodged a bullet bill and a blue shell on that one. Story 27. I told him the girl he has just met was known for being and that she was not the age she told him she was. I think he was 14 at the time. Never had a real girlfriend before. We were on a bus trip and I watched him spend the next 8 hours under a blanket with this girl. He was in love. She told him she was 16, she was 18. A few weeks later, he went to visit her at a state fair or something, had a friend drive 5 hours to get there. He found her, she introduced him to her boyfriend and blew him off for the next 10 hours. His friend texted me what happened, so I texted him to let him know I was sorry that happened and he could talk to me about it if he wanted. He proceeded to tell me how awful of a person I was and basically to F off. We didn't talk again until I married his brother. Story 28. Because I naturally remain calm and logical during arguments, the more heated the other person gets, the calmer I am. It's infuriating to people, and I am often the victim of people intentionally being very rude and hurtful to try and get a rise out of me. Story 29. Well, recently a girl got mad at me for replying to her messages too fast. I'm on my phone doing things and the messages pop up in my friggin' screen. WTF am I supposed to do? Story 30. My ex was extremely controlling and emotionally abusive, so if I didn't text back quickly enough or call him answer the phone when he expected me to, he would throw a fit. I think the biggest one though, we were out shopping because he needed new pants and I saw the cutest gay couple. I posted something about it on my Twitter account, an account ID had for years and didn't think to tell him about because it just wasn't a thing to me. That caused a 3-day fight because I was hiding things from him and not being honest. Even though when he asked he could easily see it was me fangirling over bands 90 of the time, and the other 10 was just me being my normal weird self. I still have weird anxiety issues over it today. Story 31. I'm a referee at youth soccer games. This one time, a coach almost ran into the field fuming because I called for a foul of one of their players. The foul was a tackle from the back with 2 stretched out legs. Coach's argument: the person who got tackled was a girl. Story 32. My niece blew up on me in front of the whole family because I was eating a candy bar before dinner. Edit: we are both grown adults, and she yelled at me because why would you eat that before eating dinner? Well, for one, I'm an adult that can do whatever I want legally speaking, which eating candy is. It was truly bizarre. Story 33. This stupid gave me so much one day because we were going to meet somewhere. I just couldn't get a confirmation of where point A, where we always met, or point B, where it's a little easier to get to, but takes more time. I emailed him, texted him, tried to get confirmation 2 days prior. Then en route I texted like 7 times trying to get this stupid to say A or B. I had no clue. So I chose A, where we always met. He calls, complains I'm not at B, and comes by 10 minutes later and gives me so much. Not once did I say answer your phone then, you stupid, when I really wanted to. You don't talk that way to your friends. At least that's how I felt. Thankfully that moron and I are no longer friends. Wish I got sick of him earlier in my life. This one might not count, but here we go. I was working at the Cult of Dave Thomas Wendy's at the back window, collecting money and washing dishes. That's it. I wasn't taking orders, just taking the monies. A man pulls up to the window in his red, top-down convertible and asks me, why do I have to tell you how to do your job? I have no idea what he's talking about. It turns out that he ordered a burger, fries and a shake, and the order taker had asked, do you want that in a combo? Instead of just doing it, guy was really upset. Like I said, I had no idea what he was talking about, so I basically said huh, and he repeated himself, way more upset this time, I think insulting my mediocre intelligence. I just turned and got my manager, who refused him service. He drove to the Burger King across the street. My manager looked at me and said, some people, right, or something to that effect. I still live in the same town, and see the guy at my current job. Every time I do, I'm reminded of that incident, and I want to find where he works and do the same thing. Story 34. Albeit while drinking, friend insisted on inviting group of guys to join us at bar. After insisting they come, they do, and we grab a table together. Friend doesn't participate in convo at all despite their attempts to talk to her, and I carry most of convo. BC I can't do awkward. After 5 minutes of polite small talk, friend rudely declares to guys there's no chance we're going home. W them, and they just shouldn't try. They hadn't. We then sidebar to group P and she yells at me for always having guys interested. I just apologize. BC there's no reasoning at that point and pay our tab and tell her I'm going to get the Uber. She insists not wanting my help, and I tell her fine, but I'm leaving. When Uber arrives and I walk out, she runs after me screaming how terrible I am for leaving her and proceeds to jump in my Uber, and I get in back. As heading home, friend is yelling at me, being sure to hit every insecurity of mine she can bring. I just cried. So she mocked me when I told her she needed to drink her water and shut up. She grabbed a handful of my hair and pulled Uber, still driving. I'm not trying to die in a wreck or escalate the situation, so I don't physically respond back to her hair pulling. Instead, though my friend would surely see she was being crazy and just let go. She pulled out a fist of my hair. I got out and walked the rest of the way and let her have my Uber. The next morning I expected an apology from a hungover friend. Instead I got aggressive texts and threats, because in this chaos I didn't keep track of her debit card and she had to get a new one. Yeah, her card, which for the record, was never used. I paid for the whole night. We were friends for 7 years. Never spoke again after that. I'm convinced she's a legit sociopath, but what do I know? Story 35. I work with developmentally disabled adults. Client got super pissed at me because I knew she stole a pudding cup from someone else. It was sticking out of her pants pocket. We know you stole that pudding. No, I didn't. Then what is that in your pocket? Nothing. Then like 5 minutes later she pulls it out and just says she found it and wants to eat it. Eats the entire thing and had chocolate all over her face, apologizing the whole time, but refusing to admit she did anything wrong. Program manager talks to her again and she denies it completely. I am on supervising lunch duty with her by this point, so she spends the next 20 minutes screaming and cussing and bitching about everyone, me boss, her home providers, etc., calls us all in whores and is flipping the at all the trees and grass. She eats outside, sitting on one of those patio swing chair things. Tiny 4-foot lady with shaved hair, screaming at the top of her lungs, swinging back and forth in the fresh air. I choose to be entertained. After a while I just respond with nonsense when shed cuss. You're a double. Oh no, I think I'm a lawnmower actually. A few times I just say I was a hot dog or a bunny, etc. Shed scream louder. She's also eating her lunch the entire time, which is a ham and cheese sandwich and baggie of Lay's potato chips, all crammed together into a cup that she then eats with a spoon. Eventually she screamed that her home provider was a hot dog with a ketchup face, which was very delightful for me. And then as she would flip the ID, just calmly and happily give her a thumbs up, which at first annoyed her a great deal, but eventually she sighed, realized I was hopeless, and calmly walked me through the proper steps to flip the I was not a very quick learner. After that she was calmed enough to go back inside and the day went on. Her screams have a similar piercing level as my dog's at home. He's a Weena Lab mix. Story 36. My wife, while pregnant, once threw me out of the house and didn't let me back in until the next morning. because she thought I was using too much water while washing the dishes. Story 37 girl in a class I had in college once chewed me out because I didn't like some YA novel. Well, you very much Lindsay for having a better taste in books than you. Story 38 I accidentally threw up on a guy while I was going down on him, not a lot. Just like a handful of puke maybe. He was forcefully trying to make me him. I tried to make light of the situation and laugh it off, but he was really upset and he pretty much kicked me out. I've never seen him so mad. I was really embarrassed about it until I realized that it wasn't necessarily my fault. Not me, but one time while I was a kid and having a sleepover and playing video games with my friends, my dad walked in and asks if we want to order pizza. Us being young boys, of course we did, so my father asked what we want on the pizza. My friend replied pineapple. I'm not sure why, but my father took legitimate personal offense to this. He began to yell at my friend till he was near tears. Pineapple pizza. Story 39 didn't finish my homework so my friend could copy off of it. That friend eventually failed and left the private school we were in. Edit also, same person got extremely mad at me since I suggested he should stop biting his nails that made them look like he barely had any. Probably because we were surrounded by many others, and he didn't like the attention he was getting for his nails. Story 40 friend had bed bugs. He rode in my car and gave me them for a bit, but I was able to quickly take the necessary steps to get rid of them. I told him I can no longer give him rides because of what happened, but I don't blame him. Hasn't talked to me in almost a year because of his anger at me blaming him for giving me bed bugs. Story 41 I looked back at this guy in middle school who was hyperviolent who was in my class because he threw something at me, then that made him mad and he harassed me the whole period, then followed me home and just walked up to me and starting hitting me calling me gay. Issues man, issues. Story 42 a girl I was once seeing got profoundly pissed at me because and I quote you made out with my friends in my dream last night. Bear in mind at this stage, I had only seen her friends once. Story 43 someone got annoyed at me because the background on my laptop was both the Tampa Bay Lightning and Chicago Blackhawks. He's a huge Lightning fan and hates the Blackhawks. He starts talking to me. I just ignore it since idgaff. Everyone has something they like hate. Fast forward a few hours, I was DMing a game of DD at school with a few friends. He was sitting in the background working on Math HW. His friend was around at a shop asking for all sorts of animals. He finally asks for a final animal. A hawk, specifically a black one. I saw my chance. Why yes, we do have a black hawk. Unfortunately we only have one left, and oddly enough, he only responds to the name Chicago. Guy working on his HW gets triggered and everyone is laughing their off because they were there for him talking. Story 44 I ordered a burger and wanted fries so I asked if the fries are freshly made and the worker gave me a mean look and was like we serve what we have out already. I told him then nah I'll skip the fries and right then the owner was nearby and said to me no, we'll cook you fresh hot fries right away. I said well in that case he'll get some and the worker gave me the meanest look ever. I had to keep my eye in the back to make sure no funny was going on with my burger. Story 45 when I was 15 me and a buddy got really into fitness. After a few months of gym time a girl calls me and says heard you're getting a six-pack. I responded with no why, she then proceeded to yell you, and hung up. Story 46 I forgot someone's name even though I only knew them from American Sign Language class in which we literally never hear anyone's name out loud, and if you're not a native signer, it's much harder to remember someone's name when it's only signed at you. I asked him for his name at some point during the semester, telling him I'm bad with names even when they're spoken aloud to me. Most people would be like, whatever, it's cool. This guy just stared at me like I'd grown a third eye in the middle of my forehead and was like really, you really can't remember my name, wow okay. And he literally, and I mean literally, didn't speak to me again for the rest of the semester, going so far as to sit as far from me as possible and avoid all possible eye contact. Like man, I have a really weird name IRL. I don't even care if someone I've known for months doesn't remember my name or know how to spell it. Get over yourself, dude. It's not like I forgot it on purpose, just to make you feel bad. Story 47 during my teenage years. My two sisters would get angry and flip out if I didn't get out a new bar of soap for the shower once it was worn down to 14 its original size. They would throw baseball-size objects at me, hit me, yell at me, break my belongings, etc. Story 48 a few years ago, my mom got a new job with a lesser salary and we had to adjust to the new normal. It was stressing my mom out because she had to rework her budget and was tight, too tight. This put my mom on edge and we started getting in arguments about everything. The final straw was when my mom got angry because I corrected her when she said that Michael Keaton was the first Batman. When she started yelling at me, I just calmly said, you realize we're arguing about Batman, right? That was 2 years ago, and I'm happy to say we haven't had any dumb arguments since. Story 49 I have a friend who is constantly mad at me for the dumbest reasons. We don't hang out much anymore. She called me and told me she didn't feel emotionally safe with me because I wouldn't make her a fancy quesadilla with fancy cheese and veggies. I would only make her a normal one with basic shredded cheese. After I had been waiting for her to show up for 3 hours, and we were late for an event we were going to, and she said she hadn't eaten dinner yet. Story 50 this just happened today. My GF probably ex-GF now just got extremely angry with me because I apparently wasn't communicating with her enough even though I text her for most of the day every day as she usually demands. I've probably been a little worse at communicating as my grandmother died last week and we just had the funeral, as well as being right in the middle of third-year exams. She literally doesn't seem to give a rat's about any of that though and just went off at me. Just wanted to get it off my chest. Story 51 3 times stand out for me. 2 from my grandmother and 1 from an ex. First one, my grandmother got angry at me and told me that I was a stupid spoiled brat of a child because I didn't want to go Mother's Day shopping with her to get a gift for my mom because I had already made plans to do that with my dad the next day. Second one, my grandmother told me that the school bus stopped across the street from her house. I saw a bunch of kids that I knew from school, that I knew caught that bus who were wearing my school uniform standing just down the street. Well, that's obviously where the bus really stops, I thought to myself. Grandmother came out of her house to yell at me that if I was too stupid to follow her basic directions that I could just walk to school then because she wouldn't give a lift to such a fucking disrespectful moron who wouldn't listen. I no longer talked to my grandmother. Third one, my GF at the time was listening to Dancha by the Pussycat Dolls. At the end of the chorus she turned to me and asked, well, don't you? I told her no and she stormed off yelling at me. I'm left sitting there thinking, wait, I'm in trouble for saying that I don't wish I had a hotter, freakier, rawer and funner girlfriend than you. What the? Story 52. I had reconstructive surgery secondary to breast cancer last February. Since I live alone, my dad offered to come and stay with me for a few days because of medical restrictions and being on potent painkillers. 3 hours after I left the hospital, my dad threw a giant tantrum because I don't have TV at my home. He said I was inconsiderate and didn't think that he would be bored in the evening. He went to bed at 7 p.m. mad as and left in a storm, completely enraged at 6 a.m. the next morning. Story 53. At the start of one memorable Girl Scouts meeting, 2 of us girls were tasked with making drinks for the rest of the group. Shelly and I headed into the scout leader's kitchen, got out a pitcher, a long wooden spoon, a canister of sugar and, since it was the 80s, a packet of Kool-Aid. We divvied up the operation so that I would do the mixing and powdering while Shelly would measure out the sugar and water. While Shelly was busy measuring the sugar, I opened the Kool-Aid packet and poured the powder into the pitcher with a little bit of the water she had already measured out. That is when the rage started. She shouted at me, what are you doing? Are you some kind of idiot? What type of moron puts the powder in first? I'm going to tell on you. I was a bit taken aback and asked her how she did it. In her snottiest Princess Y 8-year-old voice, she said, well, I put the powder and sugar in last. Little me, trying to be helpful, was like, but if you put the powder and sugar in first with a little bit of water, you don't get all those floaty chunks on top. That's when she started laying into me about how I was doing it all wrong. Within a few seconds, I had had enough of the yelling and decided to go outside and leave her and the unfinished Kool-Aid behind. Unfortunately, Shelly followed me, slamming the screen door in the process, and continued to shout about how I was too incompetent to mix the drink properly. I'd just started walking off the property when the leader came out to see what was going on. I told her Shelly was screaming at me about making the Kool-Aid wrong and that I wanted to call my mom to come pick me up. That's when the leader looked at me and said, you must have done something to make my daughter yell at you. She's never like this. The penny dropped. I hadn't realized they were related. Knowing there was now no way to win this one, I asked again if she could call my mom to come pick me up and then sat on the curb until my mom arrived. Let's just say I never went back to any Girl Scouts meetings. Story 54. In Super Mario Kart, I managed to make my friend miss the jump in the last lap of last race of Mushroom Cup Mario Circuit 2. Hitting him from the back with a mushroom. He lost the victory because this and got very mad at me. Story 55. Long story time. I was managing a restaurant in West Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. This first part happened on my day off. The patio for my restaurant was on the street on Sunset. There's shitting of homeless people around that area, so none of this will be surprising for anyone who has been around the area. It was a normal weekday at the Vietnamese restaurant, and it was a beautiful day in Hollywood. The patio was apparently full as I was enjoying my day off at the beach and didn't even bring my phone with me because my girlfriend would have killed me had I taken one more work call. From the description I received, there was a hard lady from Boston eating her pho on the patio, and some random homeless dude walked up to the patio and took the top off of the sriracha bottle and sprayed her in the face with it and proceeded to run down the street. Homegirl ran into the restaurant with hot sauce all over her face and yelled to the supervisor about what happened. She was a tough lady as she ran straight out the door and chased the dude down the street with nothing but the rage of sriracha dripping down her eyeballs to motivate her. I should mention the fact that about a week before this happened, my best friend of 10 years had recently moved nearby and really needed a job, so I had hired him as a busboy and he happened to be there that night. So this lady and 3 of my employees chase homeless dude down the street. Long story short, dude is all up on drugs and gets hit by a car. The cops showed up shortly after and put the dude in handcuffs as he spit in my best friend's face. Fast forward to about 2 weeks later, in managing the same restaurant, and homie shows up and sits down at the table next to the door with a woman's purse that he clearly had just snatched off of some poor woman on Sunset. All of the employees that were involved in the prior incident informed me that this was the dude that up a bunch of people's day, and that they all refused to wait on him. I called corporate and explained the situation, and they told me to give him the reserving the right to refuse service to you speech that we legally need to do in California. Dude gets up out of his chair and grabs his purse. He stood about 6 inches from my face and legitimately says, "You're being racist." "How am I being racist, sir? We're both white." "You're being racist because I'm hungry and you're refusing to feed me, sir. You assaulted my guests and my employees." "I'm not being racist. It's just that I don't feel comfortable serving you in a restaurant full of people that know what you've done." Dude proceeds to get closer to my face and put his fist one in front of my face while exclaiming, "You have no idea what you've done. I'm going to kill you for this." I looked over my right shoulder as this was happening, and my best friend of 10 years was lunging at the dude's neck with a fork for threatening my life. I threw him back as hard as I could as the homeless dude ran out of my restaurant down Sunset Boulevard, and called the cops. Never saw the dude again, but I definitely realized who my lifelong friends were. Edited as much as I can, but the mobile app sucks and I can't be being that nobody will see this anyway.